This is the Uncensored Voice. No bullshit, just real shit.
Discussing things that will stir the pot. Only here on the Uncensored Voice.
With your host, Ricky Midnight.
Sure money's not wasted like that $55 million. Hey guys, this is Ricky Midnight here. Subscribe to my channel. It's going to help me out a lot. It's going to help me pay the bills. And I hope you enjoy this episode. Hey guys, I'm hearing a lot of people saying that when Roe versus Wade is overturned, that you're not going to be able to get abortions anymore. And, well, that's simply not true. The leftist media wants you to think that because they want to be in control of everything. They want to be in control of federal government. They want to be in control of legislation from state to state. They want to be in control of everything. So in order to be in control of everything, they have to make the decisions. They don't want the people to make the decisions. The left wants to make the decisions, meaning the left people in power, right? They want to make the decisions. They don't want to put the decisions in your hands. But that's actually what the Constitution says. It needs to be put in your hands. It needs to be put in the state, and it needs to be put in the hands of the people, or the hands of the people, right? So to answer the question of can women still get abortions, absolutely. If Roe versus Wade gets overturned, you can still get abortions. Each state gets to decide whether or not they want to allow abortions. And if your state doesn't allow it, that doesn't mean you can't get an abortion. It means you have to go to a state that allows you to get that abortion. There's certain circumstances where it would be allowed, even in states that don't allow abortion. You would still be able to get that abortion there. But let me read a little bit more about the 10th Amendment for you guys. It's really simple. There's not a whole lot to the 10th Amendment, right? Here's what it says. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, meaning the government, the United States government. If the Constitution does not specifically say that the United States government has these powers, then the state has those powers. Here we go. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. What that means is if the Constitution doesn't specifically say that the federal government gets to make the decision or gets those powers, then those powers, meaning the powers to legislate it, are reserved for the state. Each individual state, there's 50 of them here in our country, and each 50 states gets to make their own decision. Because the Constitution says that the federal government does not get to make that decision, because it is not specifically said in the Constitution, you get to make the decision whether people are going to have an abortion or not have an abortion, or take the shot, or wear masks. If it doesn't specifically say that, then you, as the federal government, do not get to make that decision. So Roe versus Wade, in 1973, that landmark ruling was unconstitutional. And it took this long for people to realize that, well, yeah, that was actually 49 years ago. That was an unconstitutional ruling by the federal government. It should have been overturned, a month or two after. It should have been in court, and it should have been overturned a long time ago. Let me read to you a little bit about Roe versus Wade. On January 22nd, 1973, the U.S. Supreme Court, in a 7-2 decision, ruled that the woman may have the constitutional right, or has the constitutional right, to an abortion. Well, that would actually be incorrect. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you have the right to an abortion. If you read the Constitution, if you read every part of the Constitution, you read all the amendments, it does not address abortion. So since it doesn't address abortion, those powers are reserved for the state. That's what the 10th Amendment says. So we are just returning the powers to the state, which is the way it should have been to begin with, because it was unconstitutional in 1973 to tell each state you have to allow it. No, they don't. According to the Constitution, if they don't want to, they don't have to. Jane Roe was a pseudonym for a woman named Norma McCorvey, who was a 22-year-old woman who was unmarried, and she was from Dallas. In 1970, she wanted to abort her pregnancy. McCorvey, who had a ninth grade education, previously had another child out of wedlock and had given that child up for adoption. So I guess she didn't want to give this child up for adoption. She'd rather abort her child. Well, each state, what we're going back to here is each state, according to the Constitution, gets to make the decision. The federal government does not get to make the decision. It never did. But somehow people felt that they could just completely bypass the rule of law, constitutional law. They can just completely bypass it and let the federal government tell them what to do. Well, it's not constitutional. So that kind of answers that question. Again, I'm gonna make it in a short answer. Yes, you can get an abortion, except if that state doesn't allow that abortion, right? Go to another state, go to California, go to New York, go to some place that allows that abortion, right? Now, if it's a medical reason to have that abortion, that would be something like where the mother's life is a danger because she's having, that child grow inside of her. Different story. But each state, by law, gets to make their own decision. So I hope that answers the question for everybody out there who says, well, women aren't going to be allowed to, do what they want to do with their own bodies. Well, let me address that as well, okay? A lot of people are posting, I'm seeing on Facebook and other social medias, Twitter and everything else, that my body, my decision, right? My body, my decision. Okay, you're correct. Your body, your decision. Move to another state that allows you to do it, right? But whatever happened to, I don't want to take the shot, my body, my decision. We lost our jobs when we didn't want to take the shot. Whatever happened to my body, my decision when we didn't want to wear the masks? We lost our jobs when we didn't want to wear masks. It's my body, my decision. But so my body, my decision is only good when it fits your agenda, when it pertains to you. Maybe it's only for females. My body, my decision is only good for females. There's a lot of people posting it, and I hope that they're out there listening to my podcast, and you realize that they're not prohibiting abortion. They're only prohibiting it in certain states. Now, who knows? Texas, Florida may be the only two states that say you can't have abortion. I don't know, but yeah, in Texas, I know there's a trigger law. They call it the trigger law, which means that if you do get an abortion, then, after Roe versus Wade is overturned, if you do get an abortion, then yes, you are going to be committing a felony, right? You're going to spend the rest of your life in jail or something to that effect, right? Well, don't live in Texas if you don't like it. I mean, you're free to leave because we're in America. You're free to leave. Go to one of the other 49 states, right? Or leave the country, right? But that's what it is. My body, my decision. All right, let me read you a little bit of something here that I was kind of reading in the news that I think it's a bunch of bullshit. After natural disaster hits, white survivors and those of higher incomes are often more likely to receive help from the Federal Emergency Management Association. Studies and reports show the disparities are the target of legislation introduced Thursday to make FEMA's disaster response more equitable. Well, I went down to the dome in Louisiana that all of the people there in Louisiana totally destroyed. I don't know if people are old enough to remember this. It wasn't that long ago, but I don't know if you remember this. When the levee broke in New Orleans and New Orleans was flooded, people's homes were halfway, it's a one-story home, it's halfway underwater. If it's a two-story home, it's a quarter underwater, but I mean, that's a lot of your home underwater, right? So people were up on the roofs waiting to be rescued, and they were all rescued. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them were rescued, and they were relocated, a lot of them, to Live Oak, Texas, right? Well, as a police officer, I rode with a lot of the officers in Live Oak, Texas. They told me that Live Oak, the crime skyrocketed immediately after FEMA evacuated them and brought them to Live Oak to be settled. I went down there to help clean up the dome. I was working for a company who made cleaning chemicals. They made all sorts of sanitizing chemicals, and they made soaps and all this good stuff, right? Well, I went down there. I spent 9 days down there helping clean up the dome and putting up dispensers, and I had all the chemicals at my disposal to make sure that dispensers had what they needed for all the other volunteers to clean up, right? Okay, so I go down there. Let me tell you a little bit about what it looked like down there. When I went down there was shit all over the walls. For people whose homes were destroyed and they're living in the dome temporarily until FEMA could evacuate them, where's the gratitude? They put feces all over the walls. Okay. Women were raped in front of their children and husbands. They were raped, sexually assaulted in front of their children and husbands. Okay. The seats of the dome, the seats where people sit, were actually torn out and thrown out into the middle of the field. They throw the seats down into the middle of the field, right? The monitors were all ripped apart. The field had AstroTurf, and most of the AstroTurf was destroyed. It looked as if that had been hit by a tornado, the entire inside of the dome. Now, the walls were still standing, so it was never hit by a tornado, but it kind of looked like it did. There was utter disaster. They had to pretty much gut everything, and I mean everything. They gutted everything except for the brick and mortar, the cinder blocks, which are the wall. The cinder blocks and the mortar are the wall. That was the only thing that was standing. Everything was gutted and had to be repainted and had to be completely redone, and they did a really quick job of getting it done. But yeah, so does that sound like law-abiding citizens? The ones who would rob people, because there were men and women who were being robbed. The people who would rape people. The people who would steal their food, who would strong-arm people, who put their feces all over the walls. We're not talking little spots. I mean, when I walked into the dome, it was like walking into a cesspool. It smelled like shit. So there was a lot of feces, not sitting on the ground where people had to shit because they couldn't get to the restroom. I'm talking on the walls, smeared on the walls, vandalism, smearing their feces on the walls, okay? So this is a lot of stuff that I saw when I went down there, right? And so to say that FEMA isn't equitable about, who they help, well, that would be completely wrong, because I say a huge percentage, more than 90% of the people down there in New Orleans were black. So by reading this, if it's saying that only white people and people with higher income are the ones who are most likely going to get help from FEMA, is absolutely wrong. It's absolutely wrong. It's bullshit. So apparently the person, Bracy Harris, who wrote this, is obviously on the left, or maybe wasn't even born when this happened, or was just a little bitty child and heard bullshit stories about it. I actually went down there and helped clean the dome when this happened. So you're hearing it from an actual volunteer who went down there to clean this dome. That, this is a bunch of bullshit. And this is what the left does. They tell lies. They poison the minds of the young to, hate all of the other people who actually know the truth about what's happening. So this is Ricky Midnight, proudly unpoisoned. God bless America, and God bless Texas.
Thanks for listening to The Uncensored Voice.
Make sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And remember, on The Uncensored Voice, we tell it like it is.
So be safe, my friends, and may God bless America.